Hello student. Today topic of lecture urogenital system. Next question. Overview of the urinary organs. Anatomy of the kidney. Anatomy of the renal pelvis, calyces and ureter. Anatomy of the urinary bladder, urethra. Question number 5 and 6 we will discuss on the next lecture. Urogenital system. System urogenitale consists of the urinary organs and the reproductive or genital organs, organa genitale. These organs are closely related developmentally, and in addition, their excretory ducts as a unit to form a single urogenital tube. Their urethra in males or drain into a common space, the vestibule of the vagina in females. What do you see? Urogenital system, organa urinaria, this is a complex of organ, and organa genitalia masculina interna. This is organa urinaria males. It is organ genitalia feminina interna and organ urinaria on the females. The urinary organs. The urinary organs are 2 kidneys, the ureters, 2 urinary bladder and urethra. Urinary organ are 2 kidney, ureters, urinary bladder and urethra. The kidneys have a wide range of functions. Due to its regulation of fluid and electrolyte balance, it is an absolutely indispensable organ. Its functions are excretion of the urine, the body's own and foreign substances, regulation of fluid, electrolytes and acid-base balance, endocrine function, erythropoietin, renin, cholesterol. The efferent urinary tracts concerned with the storage and excretion of the urine. It is function of the kidney. The kidney, or ren or nephrons, is a parenchymatous organ with reddish brown color, bean-shaped, It's located in close proximity to the adrenal gland, an endocrine organ, in the retroperitoneal space behind the parietal peritoneum or of the upper abdomen. This is what you see, diaphragm. This is upper of the upper abdomen. The kidneys are 12 centimeter long, 5-6 centimeter wide, and 4 centimeter thick organ with a weight of 120 to 100 grams. They have superior pole and inferior pole, extremitas superior and extremitas inferior, anterior and posterior surface, fasces anterior, behind fasces posterior, and medial and lateral border, margo lateralis, margo medialis, margo lateralis, margo medialis, extremitas superior, extremitas inferior, anterior fasces anterior, and you see margo lateralis and margo medialis. At the middle border is the hilum renale, hilus renalis, where the vessels and the ureter enter and exit. Arteria renalis and the nerves enters in the hilum renale of the kidney. Then renalis, the ureter and lymphatic vessels exit from the hilum renale of the kidney. All these structures form renal pedicle, crus. Renal pedicle, crus. Hilum renalis, renal pedicle, arteria renalis, vein renalis, and ureter and lymphatic vessels. The kidneys extend from the level of the 11th or 12th thoracic vertebra superiorly to the third lumbar vertebra inferiorly, and thus they receive some protection from the lower two ribs. The right kidney is crowded by liver, what liver, you see liver, and lies slightly inferior to the left kidney. What you see, right kidney, left kidney, right kidney inferior to the left kidney. Fascial system of the kidney. The kidney have threefold fascial system. Threefold fascial system. First, the fibrous capsula. What you see? Fibrosus capsula. Capsula fibrosa. Capsula fibrosa. Organ capsula of dense connective tissue is located directly on the surface anatomy of the parenchyma. Next, the perineal fat capsula. What do you see? Capsula adiposa. Capsula adiposa. Adiposa. Fascial sac is open in the inferior medial side for the passage of the vessels and nerves and ureter. The renal fascia renalis. Fascia renalis is fascial sac is open in the inferior medial side for the passage of the vessels and nerves and ureter. This is, you see, fat capsule surround the kidney and adrenal gland, and renal fascia renalis is open in the inferior medial side for the passage of the vessels and nerves. What you see, veins and artery. The anterior layer of renal fascia is referred to clinically as Gerota fascia. The posterior layer merges into the muscular fascia of the musculus psoas major and musculus quadratus lumborum. Repeat. Fibrous capsula, capsula fibrosa, capsula adiposa, and fascia renalis. Which includes fascia renalis front sheet, Gerota fascia, and posterior layer. Two layer, anterior layer, posterior layer. Internal gross anatomy. A frontal section through a kidney reveals two distinct regions of kidney tissue: cortex renalis, and medulla renalis. Medulla, Latin, medulla renalis. The more superficial region, the renal cortex is light in color and has granular appearance and pars radiate the nephron loops and pars convolita the renal corpuscle, the proximal and distal convoluted tibial.
Оля, у меня лекция, перезвоню.
Pars radiate. This is cortex renalis include pars radiate and pars convoluta. Convoluted. Deep to the cortex in the dark renal medulla, which consists of cone-shaped mass called the renal pyramids. The broad base of each pyramid abuts the cortex, whereas the pyramid apex or papilla points internally. Apex, what you see, apex. The renal pyramids exhibit striation, because they contain roughly parallel bundles of tiny urinocollecting tubules. The collecting tubules are opened on the apex of the pyramids, and it forms area cribrosa. The renal column, inward extension of the renal cortex. Renal cortex separate adjacent pyramids. Column renalis, pyramids, and cortex renalis. Medulla renalis, cortex renalis. This is capsule renalis, capsula fibrosa around kidney. What you see? Coronal section through right kidney and suprarenal gland. What you see? This is cortex renalis with striated, and medulla renalis, column. What you see? This is column renalis. This is together cortex renalis, medulla renalis. The human kidney have lobes, each of which is a single renal pyramid plus the cortical tissue that surrounded that pyramid. This is, you see, lobes. There are 5 to 11 lobes and pyramids in each kidney. What do you see? Kidney. Right kidney posterior aspect partial coronal section to expose internal aspect of the kidney. You see pyramids. This is cortex renalis, medulla renalis. This is, you see, renal pelvis, and artery vein. This is ureter. What you see? Ureter. This is fibrous capsule. Colitis, pelvis, renalis. And this is, you see, lobe. The tips of the pyramids, papilla renalis, flow into the renal calyces renalis majoris and minoris, calyces and majoris, where urine is the renal pelvis, pelvis renalis. Calyces renalis minor, calyces renalis major. This is, you see, pelvis renalis. The renal pelvis is located together with adipose tissue and vascular, lymphatic and nervous system is the recess of kidney parenchyma, sinus renalis, which is connected to hilum renale. Located in hilum are vena renalis, anterior, artery renalis in the middle, and renal pelvis posterior. The kidney parenchyma consists of nephrons and collection duct, in which urine is altered by filtration out the blood with subsequent reabsorption and secretion. Finally, at the top of the papilla, the collection duct release the urine into the renal pelvis. This is renal pelvis. This is sinus renalis, ureter. This is calyces lesser, calyces large, или greater. Calyces greater. The main structural and functional unit of the kidney is the nephron. What you see, structure nephron. Includes renal corpuscle. What you see, renal corpuscle. Include glomerulus and glomerular capsula. Next, the proximal convoluted tubule, and U-shaped nephron loop. This is loop's ganglia, and the distal convoluted tubule. It is nephron, renal corpuscle, and proximal convoluted tubule, and U-shaped nephron loop, and distal convoluted tubule. This is, you see, collecting duct. It is not nephron. Classes of nephrons. The nephrons is divided into two categories according to location. Cortical nephron are located almost entirely with cortex, with their nephron loops dipping only short distant into medulla. Only part of tube. No, this is, you see, U-shaped tubular loop of Genle. Juxtamedullary are located near the cortex-medulla junction. Juxtamedullary nephrons have nephron loops that deeply invade the medulla. This is short medulla. This is deep invade medulla, in the medulla. And thin segments that are much longer than those of cortical nephron. Cortical nephron, juxtamedullary nephron. These long nephron loops is conjunction with nearby collecting duct contribute to the kidney ability to produce a concentrated urine. This is two types, the main two types, cortical nephrons and juxtamedullary nephrons. The renal pelvis, calyces, and ureter. Renal pelvis, calyces, and ureter. Urine flow from the papillary foramina passes on the way to the urinary bladder through the lesser calyces, the greater calyces. What you see, lesser calyces, this is greater calyces. The renal pelvis, and ureter. Lesser, greater, pelvis, ureter. Each renal calyx, the lesser calyces, surrounded the conical renal papilla like double-wall goblet. As a result, the proximal part of the calyx around the base of the papilla is elevated above the axis of the papilla as fornix. The wall of the fornix contain smooth muscles fiber, musculus sphincter fornices, which together with connective tissue embedded here in the adjoining nerves and blood, the lymphatic vessels, constitute the phonical apparatus of the kidney. It is the phonical apparatus of the kidney. It is smooth muscle fiber, connective tissue, nerves and blood and lymphatic vessel together form the phonical apparatus of the kidney. It plays an important role in excretion of urine from renal parenchyma into the renal calyces and prevent to return of urine from the calyces into renal tube. Tubules, into renal tubules. This is located the phonical apparatus of the kidney. This is large calyces. This is pelvis. The kidney contains 4 tubular systems: arteries, veins, lymphatic vessels, and renal tubules. The branches of the arteria renalis divide the kidney with the supply areas into 5 segments. Segmentum superius and segmentum anterior superioris and segmentum anterior inferius and segmentum inferius and fifth segment, segmentum posterior. This is 5 segment. Segmentum superior, segmentum anterior superius, segmentum anterior inferius, segmentum inferius, and segmentum posterius. A kidney has segmental structure. You see blood vessels of the kidney. In nephron associated blood vessels where forms the urine. This is blood pass next inferior vena cava aorta, renal artery, segmental artery, interlobar artery, arcuate artery, and cortical radiate artery, and afferent arteriola, and glomerulus capillaris, and afferent arteriola, pretubula capillaris, and vasa recta, cortical radiate vein, arcuate vein, and interlobal vein, and renal vein, and inferior vena cava. This is path of blood flow through the renal blood vessels. In nephron, will filtrations, blood. Renal pelvis is surrounded by adipose tissue in the sinus renalis. The renal pelvis, a flat funnel-shaped tube, is simply the expanded superior part and form ureter. This is, you see, this is minor calycis. It is major calycis, calyx, major calyx, and renal pelvis. This is renal cortex. This is, you see, renal medulla. Capsula fibrous capsula. Ureter is 25-30 centimeters long. It has diameter of approximately 5 millimeters. It transports urine by regularly occurring peristaltic waves, and it's divided into 3 sections: pars abdominalis in the retroperitoneal space, next pars pelvica in the lesser pelvis, and pars intramuralis transverse the urinary bladder wall. The ureter leaves the renal pelvis in the anterior medial direction and firstly crosses the inferior renal pole. Ureter has three constrictions. At the outflow of the renal pelvis, next at the insertion of artery iliaca communis or artery iliaca communis externa, and third of constriction as at the passageway through the wall of the urinary bladder. This is ureter has 3 sections and 3 constrictions. This is ureter, 3 constrictions and 3 sections. What you see, pilogram, this X-ray image was obtained using contrast medium to show the ureters, kidney and bladder. What you see, kidney, renal pelvis, and ureter, and urinary bladder. Urinary bladder, vesica urinaria, lies supraperitoneally and is covered on the superior side side by the peritoneum parietale of the pelvic cavity. The urinary bladder has a capacity of 500 and 1500 milliliter. Urinary bladder is divided body, apex, this is body, bladder base, and neck. Значит, apex визика, корпус визика, значит, apex and neck bladder. At the fundus, the exit of the ureter, ostium urethra internum, forms, together with confluence found on the side of ureter, ostium uterus, ostium uterus, ureterus, ostium ureterus. The trigone of the bladder, trigonum vesica. What you see, trigonum vesica. What ostium ureterus. This is bladder neck. What you see, bladder neck. What you see, position of the urinary bladder in reference to the pelvic organ. This is urinary bladder of the males. This is female pelvis. Urinary bladder. What urinary bladder? And you see urethra, longer than urethra of female. Urethra. This is urinary bladder. The bladder is surrounded by paravesical adipose tissue and secured by various ligaments. Ligamentum umbilicale medianum contains the relic of allantois duct, runs from apex of the urinary bladder to the navel. Ligamentum umbilicale medianum. Ligamentum pubo vesicalis. Pubo vesicale transverse the spatium retropubicum, and in woman is uncut of the both side of the neck of the bladder. This is neck of the bladder, on the posterior side of the pubic bone. What you see, pubic bone. This is located ligamentum pubo vesicale. This is in female pelvis. Two ligament. The bladder is surrounded by paravesical adipose tissue and secured by various ligaments. Ligamentum umbilicale, umbilicale, umbilicale runs of the apex of the urinary bladder to the navel, and ligamentum puboprostaticum, puboprostaticum, ligamentum puboprostaticum, corresponding ligament in man, ligament in man. In female, puba vesicale, in male, ligamentum puboprostaticum, puboprostaticum. Вот we see vesica urinaria. This is apex. Behind the urinary bladder, the peritoneal cavity in both sexes is extended caudally to recess. The excavator vesica uterina, excavatico vesico uterina, what you see, excavator vesico uterina, and excavatico recto vesicalis, recto vesicalis, excavatio recto vesicalis. In woman and female, vesico uterina, in man, vesica recto vesicalis, separated the urinary bladder from the uterus and rectum. This in woman, in man. This is different. Urethra. The urethra is formed very variably in both sexes. Female urethra is 6 mm wide and at 3-5 cm, very short, and enters directly ventral of vagina into the vestibule of the vagina. Short tubal, short urethra. This is, you see, vesica urinaria. This is urethra feminina, female urethra. This is ureter. You see ureter. What ureter? This is third part of ureter. Intramuralis ureter. Part intramuralis. Male urethra is relatively long at 20 cm and is divided into different sections. Pars intramuralis, 1 cm in the urinary bladder wall. It begins at the ostium urethra internum. Next, pars prostatica. Traverses the prostate. Here the ductus ejaculatory, common exit duct of ductus deferens and seminal vesicle. Confluence with the colliculus seminalis at the prostate glands bilaterally. Next part. Pars membranacea. Такая short part, 1-2 centimeter, at passage through the pelvic floor. And next part, pars spongiosa. Pars spongiosa runs this in of corpus spongiosum of the penis up to the external orifice. Это ostium urethra externum. Ostium urethra externum. You see, ostium urethra internum, ostium urethra externum. Here, Cowper glands, glandula bulba urethralis, and glandula urethra flow into each other. The proximal section is also somewhat wider, and is sometimes referred to the ampulla urethra. Ampulla urethra. The male urethra has, in men, has two curvature. At the transition from pars membranacea to the pars membranacea, pars and pars spongiosa, pars spongiosa, and in the middle section of the pars spongiosa, and the following constriction: ostium urethra internum, pars membranacea, and ostium urethra externum. Narrowest point, diameter 6 mm. Two curvature, 1 and 2. Two curvature. Today I finish lecture. Thank you very much for attention. Next lecture, topic of the next lecture, genital reproductive system of male and female. Goodbye.